It's our job as adults to reflect upon our own language biographies, to be thinking, okay, maybe I was a bit stressed by German when I was at school, but this doesn't mean that my child is going to have that experience.
Fröbelcast, der Podcast für Eltern.
In Germany, over 40% of children aged 0 to 5 have a migration background, according to figures from the Federal Statistical Office. Especially in big cities, it's common to hear many different languages daily, and as a result, more and more children are growing up multilingually. This diversity is enriching. Nevertheless, parents often worry whether their child speaks German well enough. How does kindergarten deal with multilingualism? And how can we address parents' concerns? My name is Johanna Meinikat and I welcome Alison Mannion-Ghambari. Alison works in human resources development at Fröbel and deals with topics related to multilingualism, bilingualism and diversity. Hello Alison, lovely to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Johanna.
In a nutshell, what does multilingualism mean?
Multilingualism quite simply means many languages, so more language than one. And we're talking about here growing up with more than one language, which the majority of us actually do. If you read the literature on this topic, you'll see that it's estimated that around 70 to 80% of the world population is growing up multilingually. This is not the case always, or hasn't traditionally been the case in Europe, which means it's something new for a lot of parents, it's something new for a lot of educators.
Well, I secretly envy people who grow up with more than one language. But families affected may be concerned whether their child will get to speak German well enough. In Fröbel Parents Academy, that's an event series organized by Fröbel for parents, you recently dedicated an entire evening to this topic, and many parents participated, raising interesting questions, and I'd like to discuss some of them with you. So let's start with the first question. Should we, as parents, speak to our children in our native languages or rather in German so that the children understand the German language from the beginning?
Now, I get this question a lot. And of course, parents want to do the best for their children. Now, that's the starting point here, and that's something that's always to be valued. And here I can say the most important thing that you can do is speak the language with your child that you feel happiest speaking, that you enjoy most, that you feel you can communicate best in. Yeah, that's the most important starting point here. And I talked about just before then when I was saying how it's still something, multilingualism is still something that's fairly new for a lot of us in Europe. And this you see because we haven't grown up multilingually ourselves, and so we're worried about something that we don't know, and maybe thinking, I want my children to have the best starting conditions possible so that when they come to school, they've got to be able to speak German well. I'm going to speak it with them as well. But you're putting yourself under pressure there. Yeah, because it's maybe not the language that you most enjoy speaking, and you're putting your children under pressure. And the children who are very empathic, they're learning, is German something to be stressed about? Is German something that I have to do? Children, pragmatic as they are, will then maybe think, okay, maybe I won't, maybe I will. Yeah, it's about enjoying languages and speaking the languages then as well that you're best at.
So you suggest staying relaxed and speaking in the language you feel the most comfortable
staying
with.
Relaxed at, and as well thinking our children are growing up multilingually. Our children are going to experience us as adults as well, also in multilingual situations. I grew up monolingually. I started learning languages at school at a relatively late age of 12, 13 it was. I didn't really have the choice to be speaking lots of languages with my daughter when she was very small. But she knew that I was a German speaker. Yeah, she experienced me in German-speaking situations, and I think sometimes parents underestimate the effect that German as the majority language in the country actually has. Yeah, language acquisition is to do with input, and it's to do with the quality and quantity of the input, and you have a lot of German input quite simply because you're in Germany. Yeah? And the children experience this, and the children experience their parents as well going shopping, in the supermarket, talking in German. There are lots and lots of situations where children experience German in multilingual families that we sometimes don't really think about.
Yeah, but when it comes to school, when it comes to starting school, parents usually have concerns and worries and about the children's language skills. And after all, language is known to be the gateway to education and participation. Can a child's language skills at kindergarten be an indicator to success at school? Or how is there any chance to measure it?
Of course, language skills are important. Yeah, of course they are. I think the most important skill, though, or I would say the prerequisite for developing this language proficiency, is our feeling of self-efficacy. Yeah? Do the children feel seen in their own interests? Yeah? Do they experience adults who communicate with them at wavelength? Yeah, who notice what's important for them, who develop impulses according to those interests that they've seen. And this type of working in our centres, this type of communication on eye level within the family, this way of being, of enjoying communication, this is then the basis for everything else. And then the language skills will come. It can well be that in the kindergarten time that the children understand a lot, that their passive knowledge in German is very high, but maybe they don't speak as much. And then all of a sudden, so it's very different. Every child deals with their multilingualism differently. Some children start talking a bit in the second or third language. Some children wait for a very long time and then all of a sudden talk. But this passive and active knowledge can be very different. And sometimes the parents think that the children can't speak German, and it's more a matter of they don't, or they don't have reason to speak German, but they understand it a lot. Yeah, I observe that a lot in centres that I see. I was in a centre recently, and there were some children there, Ukrainian children, and there was the concern, do the children understand German? Are they ready for school? And they were in a group and they were playing and they were speaking Ukrainian together and they were having a really good time. And I thought, brilliant, this is the important thing. This is the self-efficacy. They're enjoying themselves. They're playing. They're with adults who obviously care about their well-being and their interests. And the educators were saying, yeah, but can they speak German? And I said, yeah, but look, I was playing a puzzle with one of them and I was asking, I'd noticed that he had a gecko and he was playing with his gecko. And I said, oh, what have you got there? And what's that? And I could see his little eyes. You can see the children value it so much when you show interest in what they're doing and what's important for them. They immediately show how much they value that behaviour from us. And so I then asked him, is your gecko happy, or how's the gecko feeling? And we had this puzzle with children smiling or being sad or being angry or whatever. And they were enjoying playing with the puzzle and they could see the emotions. And then the child, I could see him thinking. And sometimes this is also very important. These are small children. Sometimes we ask children questions and we expect an answer too quickly. And children need a bit of time to process and to think about what they're going to say. And this little boy, he was thinking about it. And then he pointed, his gecko was happy. His gecko was happy. And then I said, but he must have understood German because I spoke German to him. And this is then something, sometimes we're a bit too quick. We're a bit too quick.
Give them more time.
Give them more time. Show our interest in their interests.
Another question from the Parents Academy was, is it okay if my child speaks multiple languages in one sentence?
Yes, I mean, this is something that's called code switching. It's called code switching, and we hear it a lot in our bilingual centres. We have bilingual centres, say English, German, Spanish, German, Polish, German, Portuguese as well, lots of different languages. The centre has 2 official languages. This doesn't mean that other family languages aren't included as well, but they do have these 2 languages. The educators then speak in a second language, and you'll hear things like they'll say, ich will blue. Yeah, and this is actually, it's a really important language skill, and they're showing that they've intuitively understood the grammar of the sentence. You've got the verb to begin with, and then you've got the colour that they want. So they're using the language intuitively. They're using their language skills. And nowadays in the literature as well, we're talking a lot more about translanguaging, using all of our languages. Yeah, and I think this is important. And young children do this intuitively. And it's our job as adults to reflect upon our own language biographies, to be thinking, okay, maybe I was a bit stressed by German when I was at school. I certainly was. Maybe I was a bit stressed as an adult coming to a new country and having to work in German. Yeah, I also was. Yeah, but this doesn't mean that my child is going to have that experience. Yeah.
Okay, can we go back to that term, language biography? What does it actually mean?
Well, language biography, or your biography, it means your learning experiences, the learning experiences that you have had regarding languages. And with our first language, we learn it just from growing up from our parents. We don't notice learning it. Yeah, and for a lot of us, those of us who've grown up monolingually, we've learned the second and third languages in a lesson structure. Yeah, and so this is our biography, our experiences of learning a second or third languages are very school-based. They're often very sort of test-based. Yeah,
doesn't sound like fun.
No, it doesn't sound like fun, and they're very ingrained, and it's sort of it's a habit that you have to consciously reflect upon. Yeah, because languages, and children will do this intuitively. Languages are for communicating, and they're to be enjoyed.
Yeah.
And the school situation where you're learning to pass a test, you know, and a lot of us who've come to Germany and have to have our B2s, our C1s, that's also a stressful situation. And we have to sort of consciously reflect upon that and think, okay, but what actually worked well? Yeah, how can I work on my own self-efficacy? And that's what we do in training courses for educators. Yeah, educators who are trained to have an eye for how can we support the children's multilingualisms, that we say, think about your own learning biography, think about your own self-efficacy, think about what worked well, yeah, and do more of that. Think about what you enjoyed with languages and do more of that. Think about the fact that language is a good means of communicating with more people, and it's enjoyable. Yeah, to be able to communicate, to hear different sounds. The children enjoy it. We can enjoy it as adults as well. Yeah, and those routines that we've built up, we need to replace those routines with new experiences and new enjoyable ways of being with language.
Okay. There's another question from the Parents Academy saying, I want my child to learn my native language, so I speak exclusively in Spanish to them. However, my husband doesn't speak Spanish, so we communicate in English. He feels excluded when I speak Spanish to the child, but I've heard that I should only speak my language to avoid confusing the child. What would you recommend in this situation?
Every situation is different. Yeah, so I definitely wouldn't want to be the person from outside here to say, you have got to do this and those are the rules. Yeah.
Doesn't sound like fun.
No, it doesn't sound like fun. It's not enjoyable, and it's not this sort of intuitive, how can we use all of our languages? Yeah, how can we use all of our languages? Children won't get confused. They will know that you as a parent are multilingual and use different languages. There's no reason why you have to stick to one language with the child. And I mean, I remember this years and years ago in Germany. The immersion learning method was suddenly very popular, and it was as though it was like magic. You just immerse yourself in English and then you're going to learn it, and there's going to be no effort involved whatsoever. And that's not quite the case. I think it's a matter here of thinking about that the child knows in different situations as well, that you can maybe at home with mum, I'm talking Spanish, mum and dad, their language is English, that the situations are intuitively in different languages, and this forcing things is just not a productive way to support the languages. And I think you could do things like, maybe, I don't know, if you want to include your partner more in the language learning, in experiencing Spanish, you could do something like, baking in Spanish. And we always say as well, because sometimes from educators we've heard the children are talking to each other and I don't understand them. And I sort of say, who's that a problem for here? The children or for you? Yeah? If it's for you, then deal with that. Deal with that. You don't have to understand every single word. Yeah, you don't have to understand every single word. You do have to, if you're in a community, have a sort of lingua franca between you, though, don't you? And this is why I say there's no one answer to any of these questions, apart from, I'm coming back again to this feeling of self-efficacy, of enjoying languages, of getting into this flow of learning. Yeah, if you think of those three things and think, okay, what has worked well? Let's build on that. And often we sort of think about, we think about what hasn't worked well, and we really want to avoid that for our children because we want the best for our children. But if you're thinking so much about the negative, then it's not going to give you that necessary energy for learning and developing a new language.
True, but if parents are concerned and they have these worries, what kind of questions can they ask the kindergarten staff to get a better understanding of language education?
Yeah, and that's very important. Thank you for that question. If parents are concerned, they should really talk to our colleagues in the kindergartens. They are the professionals. They do have a very good training background and knowledge about multilingualism as well. And they can ask things like, what is my child interested in? What is my child doing? Where does my child really get into a flow? That my child is so concentrated that he or she doesn't notice what's going on around him.
It's learning.
Yeah, it's learning. It's playing and it's learning. And that will give you a very good feeling that the colleagues, that the educators, that they know that they're supporting your child.
So now we talk quite a lot about the quality of language education, but it has to do as well with quantity, I guess, because you need practice, don't you?
Yeah. Language acquisition is a matter of input, and input has a quality aspect and it has a quantity aspect as well. And yet still, self-efficacy is going to be the core. And some people say, we've heard from some parents that they say, make sure my child doesn't play with that other child because then they're going to speak in their home languages with each other, and I want my child to speak German. And then we'd say, that's not really going to work because we want your child to have a home from home feeling here.
In a good time.
We want your child to have a good time. Because when a child has a good time, a child actually learns well. But we're looking then at things like, activities, if you're observing what the children really enjoy doing. And then we're looking at activities that maybe everyone can join in doing. Like, we had a glitter bottle project in a kindergarten, and it lasted for months. They were fascinated by it. Yeah, the language input is not the most important thing for the children, but it is important. Yeah, and it was there. Yeah, and they were playing with their glitter bottles and they were talking about a little bit of glitter or a lot of glitter, or you have to make sure that it's closed. You have to make sure that it stays closed, that nobody drinks it.
Yeah. Everywhere.
Yeah, and all of these things. Yeah, and that's the input as well. Yeah, and you're getting that input when you're looking at the children's interests. Yeah, and this is what's so nice about the job as an educator. You're getting on that child's wavelength, on all the children's wavelength, and you're continually thinking, okay, what sort of little things can I offer? Yeah, so you're observing what are the children's interests, you're developing impulses, you're looking what works, and then maybe at the end of the week you're sort of thinking, okay, that worked, that didn't work, next week we'll develop it a bit further. And all in daily life.
And this is something parents can ask about.
This is something that parents ask about. And of course, this way of working, this way of being, showing what you're interested in and just observing. And I see it a lot. Parents know what their children like. I saw a little boy recently completely dressed in dinosaurs. Those parents or grandparents, they've bought those clothes, We notice this, that the parents know their children.
He kind of likes dinosaurs.
Yeah. He likes dinosaurs, and you'll have others. You can tell that the parents know what the children like, and then they're developing on that too. And I think that the sort of the not pushing them, forcing the learning is not going to work. But enjoying and getting into the flow, that is what works.
Would you recommend parents who still have worries or are concerned to use apps to boost language skills? Is that a good idea? I
don't know of any apps that I would personally recommend. But I suppose this is to do with the fact that I have my electronic gadgets. I have also books online as well, but it's not something that I very often do too much. I think it's a matter of taste here. It's a matter of what works. And again, something with the apps, I know that we have our colleagues who are experts on apps for children in the centres, and they will have practiced, they will have introduced things maybe in the centre, and they'll have a feel for what has already worked. Yeah. So I would say there that rather than my recommendation for a specific app would more be talk to your educators and say, hey, have you used any apps here? Have you got any good recommendations for us? For what might work with the children. I think that's probably a more sort of productive way to go. And, because otherwise you're going down the slippery slope again, maybe of putting pressure on the learning situation. We're at school and we've got to learn German now. Yeah. And that could well be counterproductive.
And what kind of alternatives are there then? Like for parents who do not speak any German and think, I'd like my child to have more contact with the German language.
Well, maybe they could do things like have a look in their neighbourhood. What sort of offerings are there in the neighbourhood, like a sort of a theatre group that we could get involved in? Or, I know our kindergartens will have summer festivals. Go to the summer festivals, get to know the other parents at the summer festivals. You'll have sports clubs. Join in with those things, find other parents, find other families, get into contact with people. And again, probably, ask in your kindergarten centres, ask the teams. They very often, we have network coordinators in our centres who've got a very good overview of these sorts of activities and offerings in the near vicinity of the individual centres.
We talked about concerns and challenges. I'd like to finish our conversation with a positive spin. What are the major benefits of multilingualism?
I think the major benefit is being able to communicate with more people. That is one of the major benefits. I think the earlier children have contact with more than one language, the more confident they are in their language learning. I've very often noticed over the years, the earlier children come into contact with different languages, the less afraid they are of learning further languages. Yeah, that they seem to have a mindset of, oh, it's another language. Yeah, fair enough. I'll learn that as well. Research has shown that the ability to be able to think in different languages often leads to more and more varied solutions. At the end of the day, though, I think multilingualism is just part of life.
Mm-hmm. And also dealing with situations in which you can maybe not understand everything 100%.
As well, I think we tend to forget that the majority of us are multilingual, even if a lot of people will say, no, I'm not. Yeah, like you did to begin with when you said, I'm envious of people, but you've done this whole interview in English now. So you
I made it.
Yeah, you made it as well. So you're multilingual as well.
Yes.
Now, Johanna.
I'm in the club.
Yeah, you're in the club. You can join in as well. And very often I think we're too strict with ourselves. Adults are very often too strict with themselves, and the majority of us, more people are multilingual than we would think. And there are always different languages that we bring from our youth. Yeah, so sociolects, youth languages, we have those as well. So we really are all multilingual, and I think we can just enjoy all of those languages.
Yeah, if you understand this term in a wider sense than just languages. Yeah,
means of communication, means of starting a dialogue with each other, of communicating with each other, of staying on eye level with each other. That's what we need. Yeah, we very often say, parents are concerned about preparing their children for school, preparing them for life. We don't know what the future's going to bring, but we do know that there are going to be surprises. So we need our self-efficacy, and we need our solution-finding competence and our flexibility and our looking in different systems. And I think multilingualism does bring that.
Thank you very much for this interesting conversation, Alison.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Dear parents, if you have any questions about this topic or suggestions for future topics, please write us at podcast@frobel-gruppe.de. You can find out more about our Parents Academy and all podcast episodes on our website at www.fröbel-gruppe.de.